Like to welcome now NBC's Bob Costas. He'll be obviously involved covering the Winter Classic for NBC on January 2nd. And Bob, thanks for taking a few minutes for us today. And I wanted to start by asking you, you've covered all the major events in sports. How does the Winter Classic compare to some of the other big events you've covered?
Well, the word unique is misapplied, but in the United States at least, the Winter Classic is a unique hockey event. The atmospherics of it are maybe more of a draw than the game itself, although we've had excellent games that have gone right to the wire, games that have gone to overtime, games that involve the league's biggest stars. But nonetheless, it's the atmospherics. It's the site, if it's Fenway or Wrigley as it has been in the past, or it's the feel of it under the lights last year at Heinz Field, which was really a bit of good luck, because the rain turned the ice to mush and they couldn't play during the afternoon. They play at night and it just looks so different under the lights. And the very first one is the best example. The snow in Buffalo, and I've used this phrase time and time again, but it's the one that applied, turned it into kind of a snow globe effect on television. And American audiences, at least, there's the Hradek Classic north of the border, but American audiences, at least, we're not used to seeing hockey this way, and it televises so well that I think it just struck people. And I think there's a buzz about the Winter Classic that goes beyond the raw rating. The raw rating is very, very good. Regular season hockey hasn't gotten these kinds of ratings in decades and decades. But even beyond that, people talk about the event in the days following it. And while there's no way to measure that, there's no doubt that there's a benefit in that to the league.
You mentioned being at Fenway Park, being at Wrigley Field, being in Buffalo, and we had that, as you mentioned, the amazing kind of weather that day and that snow globe kind of look to the game. Mm-hmm. You've been at these, Bob. What is your favorite moment? Do you have a favorite moment from the games that you've been at?
I think it would just be the first one, before they drop the puck, and the sense that we're involved with something that's surprising even us. There's something about this that feels so natural, so genuine. Everybody in the stands and the players on the ice could feel it, that there was something special about this. It was kind of a goosebump-raising moment, and not just because it was cold enough to give you goosebumps. And then, of course, that game went right to the end, and Sidney Crosby turns out to score the winning goal, so you couldn't script it any better than that.
For fans, Bob, we've had it now in baseball stadiums, we've had it in football stadiums. Obviously, it's a little bit different depending upon where it is. What is your thought for fans as you look into the crowd at these events? I mean, is there a difference depending upon football stadium, baseball stadium?
Not necessarily. I've found fans at all four that we've done so far to be really, really into it. I think the weather, however, is a factor. We have our fingers crossed that on January 2nd in Philadelphia, it'll be snowing. Not a blizzard, not wind blowing, but just a nice, gentle Currier and Ives snowfall. The flakes sort of descending around the players. That's what we're hoping for, the atmospherics. And the thing in Pittsburgh last year, where they played under the lights, I think that kicked it up a notch too, because those fans had been waiting for an afternoon face-off. And then the anticipation built and built when it was moved back several hours. And then these people show up. They've rearranged their plans for the day. They show up at night, and there was sort of a giddy party atmosphere about it. And they themselves weren't used to seeing a game, A, outdoors, and then B, at night under the lights. I mean, this isn't baseball or football where that kind of stuff is commonplace. Mm-hmm. So in each case, for different reasons, whether it was Buffalo, Chicago, Boston, Pittsburgh, for different reasons, it felt like something unique and special.
Bob, last thing, you've, as we know, you've covered a lot of different sports. We know the rivalries between Philadelphia teams and New York teams. We've seen the Eagles and Giants, and just a couple of weeks ago, the Jets and Eagles playing. So there's always that nasty rivalry. We have the Rangers and Flyers. They have that same kind of dislike for one another. How do you think playing in a Winter Classic impacts the rivalry between two teams like that?
I think it kicks it up yet another notch. And in this case, the rivalry is as much of a selling point for the game as the venue. And the fact that they're both good teams this year. So you have not just the history between them, but what's at stake going forward in this season. I think that's a big, big part of it. And at Citizens Bank Park, when the Mets come to Philadelphia, there's no love lost, especially a few years ago when the Mets and Phillies were both contenders, and the Phillies prevailed in a couple of close divisional races that helped to create a rivalry there baseball-wise. So you don't have to really prompt Philadelphia fans to feel venomously toward almost any opposition, especially if the opposition's wearing a New York uniform.
No question about that. Bob, thanks for your time today, and good luck down there in Philadelphia.
All right, guys, thanks a lot.